Hi, Angus here from Tiny Towing Solutions. We're here today to show you through my tiny house and how we're structured. We're located in Manaroo, which is in the Waikato, on 30 acres of family land. So for power on our property, we've got two different setups. This here is our solar setup. We've got 18 440 watt panels connected up to our battery bank. So our second setup here for power is our hydro unit. We catch the water from about 80 metres up the hill and run it down through a pipe, and then it spins a water turbine which charges our 48 volt battery setup. We looked into the option for running a wind turbine to power the house, but when we looked into it, it wasn't consistent enough for what we need. So the cost to set it up was just not going to outweigh the cost of using it. So that's why we went to hydro instead, because it runs 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So all of our power from our solar and hydro flows back to this shed here. This is where we house our batteries and our inverter, which powers the house. Our solar system has three main components to it. We have our solar controllers, our batteries, and then our inverters. So the power comes in from the solar panels to the solar controllers, which converts it, and it's then stored in our batteries. From there, when we need the power goes out through the inverters back to the house to where we need it. For our hydro unit, it's a little bit different. It still comes in through a controller which charges the batteries, but as the hydro has to run 24/7 and you can't just turn it off, when the batteries get full, we have a setup which the excess power goes to the springs and heats the springs up so it doesn't overload the batteries. So when the power is discharging to the springs just get quite warm, which is very beneficial because it keeps the shed dry. For our water, we catch the water from way up the hill. So the water's piped down 20mm pipe all the way to the house. Because we catch it from so high, we've got really good pressure here, so we don't need any inline pumps. Because the water's caught straight out of the spring and piped down, we only have to run one water filter setup, and the water's really clean into the house. So for our house here, we've got a 14x4 compact home. We've built a 14x3 deck on the outside of the home and put a pergola covering the whole thing. Over here we've got a superior cabins, 5x3, just as a spare bedroom. We've put a little deck and handrails on that because of how high off the ground it is. So in our last tiny home that was down the hill, we lived in it while we built the deck, so it took a couple of months to build the deck in the front of the house, and so we were living in a construction zone. When we put this house in, we didn't want to do that, so we had this deck built off-site and we transported it in. So we put the house in one afternoon, and then the next morning put the ground screws in for the deck and then craned the deck straight onto the screws. So it meant when we moved into the house it was 100% complete, ready to live in. It's so good to have a deck on the tiny house because it doubles your footprint essentially, and you find you leave all your shoes and everything outside instead of carrying all your dirty stuff inside. For us, the benefit is having dogs. The dogs live out on the deck, so they have their own space. For our foundation of our deck, we've used the grounded NZ ground screws, and we've put 125 bearers on top of it. This meant that we could drop the deck offset from the house by 100mm to get our strops and everything out of, and then we were able to use winches and winch the deck against the house. So when it comes time to remove it, all we do is winch the deck away from the house and lift it back out again. We recommend using the steel ground screws just because of how simple and easy and clean it is. If we ever move the house to a different site, we just come in, wind the ground screws out, take them with us and put them in at the next site. We didn't have to try and get concrete trucks up here. If you've seen our driveway, you'll see it's not too easy to get the concrete trucks up here. One of the other things we moved on very quickly was this for storage. You don't have to start with a big shed. You can start with something like a shipping container and then build up to whatever you need later on. It's so important when you live in a tiny house to have somewhere to store your stuff. The other thing to think about is your septic system, what you're going to do. There's a lot of options for toilets, from composting to flushing to incinerating. If you go the septic tank route, it's not only the size of the tank you've got to take into account, but the size of the drainage field you need as well. So here we have our mud room. We reused this one off our last tiny house and made it fit on this one. It's so good to have a mud room because you come in and hang up all your wet coats and your wet boots and kick them all off, and you can get clean before you walk into your house. So here we have our gas bottles set up. In our house, our gas bottles do our heating, our cooking and our water. So we've got two 45 kilo gas bottles, and we just have an app that we put it in when we need a new one, and they come and swap them over for us. So for our tiny house, we opted to have a scullery down the end, which is also our back door leading onto the mudroom. We then come through into our kitchen, and we've gone for a big open kitchen looking into the lounge. Then past the lounge is our bathroom, and we've gone again for another big bathroom, and then we have one main master bedroom with a bunch of storage down the end. The reason we opted for a one bedroom was because it's just us at home, and we didn't need the second bedroom, we opted to put a second room outside for when visitors come to stay. This gave us a lot more room inside the house for having a big kitchen and big bathroom. This also means that our guests don't have to sleep right next to us when they come over and stay. They've got their own room outside. So here's the reason of why we go through 1 LPG bottle a month in winter. We've got an LPG heater installed, connected straight to our gas bottles. Because we're off grid, if it's a bad week of weather, we don't want to drain all the batteries using the aircon unit. So yeah, we installed this LPG heater to keep the house warm. So we opted for this over a fireplace because we get back late quite often, and by the time you heat the fire up and warm the house up, it's time for bed. So this here, you just flick a button and you've got instant heat coming out. So for our choice of internet, we use Starlink because we're off grid in the middle of nowhere and it's the one that has the best signal. We just have a dish located on the roof, and then we've run the wires into the house, and this is where our modem sits. Yeah, so it gives us very fast internet. We can have both TVs running, watching Netflix at the same time, and both phones connected, and it never slows down. So this internet setup is perfect for those that's more rural based. So that was a quick tour of our place. Hopefully that gave you some food for thought on your situation. We understand that it doesn't fit everywhere, but this is what works for us.